Hey everybody, I'm Sid, and welcome to Social Democracy Shorts, presented by the Nordic model. On today's episode, we're going to talk about full employment. Perhaps there is no one that describes this concept better than Mikhail Koleski in his essay, Political Aspects of Full Employment. In it, he says, "The maintenance of full employment would cause social and political changes which would give a new impetus to the opposition of the business leaders. Indeed, under a regime of permanent full employment, the sack would cease to play its role as a disciplinary measure. The social position of the boss would be undermined and the self-assurance and class consciousness of the working class would grow. Strikes for wage increases and improvements in condition of work would create political tension." Before we get into the nitty-gritty of what full employment is, it's important to realize the sheer tyranny of unemployment. Unemployment is painful. It's really painful, and because of the way that the business cycle works, millions of people find themselves unemployed through no fault of their own, and it sucks. Unemployed people find themselves making 20% less than their peers 2 decades later. They find their life expectancy reduced. Their children face permanent damage to their earnings when a parent loses their job. They face higher rates of things like depression. Unemployment is so bad that people find themselves with diminished vital skills that include being able to read. Since World War II, unemployment rates have hovered between 4 to 6%. This group of people are undergoing the pattern of suffering through no fault of their own, because unemployment is a structural problem under capitalism. There is an underclass of people that have a really miserable experience so that capital is able to retain what Koleski refers to as the power of the sack, or as Chris Dillow puts it, capitalism needs the unemployed to look for work, to be an effective supply of labor. This requires that they be incentivized to seek jobs by meager unemployment benefits and by being stigmatized. In other words, the unemployed must be made unhappy. So now we get to full employment. Full employment means that there is no demand-deficient unemployment. Generally, there should be no dearth of demand for labor. It is as simple as this. Anyone that wants a job should be able to get a job as easily as possible, and anyone that wants to exit their job should be able to exit their job as easily as possible. This is an elevation of the power of labor against the interests of capital. Elevating the power of labor, full employment creates a sufficient higher bargaining power against capital because it forces capitalists to compete against each other for the pivotal factor of production, labor. Some policies that we can look at to achieve full employment are an economic strategy of tight labor markets by enacting legislation that strengthens the power of labor through pro-union measures, centralized wage bargaining, generous UI and other distributional schemes, and most importantly, a strong welfare state to help decommodify labor. Also, we should look at a robust industrial policy. The road to full employment can also be hobbled by supply chains and capacity constraints. As such, industrial policy alleviates the tension generated by tight labor markets. Industrial policy focuses on the most productive pattern of investment, and thus it favors business segments that promise to be strong international competitors while helping to develop the industrial infrastructure and skilled workforce needed to support those segments. Hey everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this type of content, feel free to give us a subscribe and follow us on Twitter. There's lots more on the way. Cheers and take care.